Thank you very much. I'm sorry to not be with you, as I explained earlier to Penny. Um, by the time June is over with, I will have done three memorial services, and I have two of them yet to do. And so I've got a lot of writing as well as Sunday lessons, etc. So anyway, thank you for letting me come in by Zoom. I always enjoy being with you and looking at your beautiful scenery out there at the lake. First question, how many of you have ever had doubts about something in your life? And if I was there, I could see your hands, but you could just kind of shout out and say, yeah, me, I've had doubts, so that I know, yep, we all have them. And maybe it's about a job or a relationship, your faith, or whether something you once believed was true or not. But doubt and faith are really honestly two companions with each other on the journey of our personal belief process. One does not necessarily cancel the other out. In many ways, they walk side by side with each other. And it's always interesting and helpful to look at, to me, to look at the words that originated that we're working with today so that we can better understand their meaning and effects on our life and actually where they came from. And the word doubt comes from Latin and Old French roots. And in the 12th and the 13th centuries, it meant fear, hesitation, or wavering in opinion. And so you can see that fear starts to enter here with doubt. And the word faith, on the other hand, also traveled from Latin through France and into Middle English. And it originally meant loyalty and allegiance and total and trust and belief. And our founder, Ernest Holmes, wrote about doubt. And I love this explanation that he says. We plant a seed and it evolves a plant. To plant a seed of thought and then uproot it through doubt, denial, undue haste, or anxiety is to neutralize our effort. It would be like planting corn and then uprooting it every few days to see if it was really growing. We must learn to trust this law of growth since it is a natural part of the order of cause and effect. And he also further defines a faith. He said, the measure of our faith in the infinite is the measure of our capacity to draw from the infinite. This is why the great teacher said, it is done unto you as you believe. If we can believe in great good, then much good can come to us. It is according to our mental acceptance, according to our faith, that life manifests through us. The role of doubt is actually an important part of each and every one of us for our spiritual growth. When we experience doubt, it pushes us to seek a deeper understanding of a given situation. It invites us to search for a divine answer to something that has unsettled us. Doubt challenges easy answers and surface level beliefs. It forces us to go deep within ourselves and look for the greater truth. Doubt encourages us to search honestly, and in that searching, our spirituality often deepens. The coexistence of faith and doubt can feel very uncomfortable for all of us. Yet doubt does not necessarily create disbelief or spiritual decline for us. Instead, it offers us an opportunity for honest questions that seek answers to complex thoughts and experiences in our lives. When we're in that place of uncertainty, we can still find joy and purpose and community, not by running away from our self doubt, but by stepping directly into it and surrendering to it. Through our willingness to let go and trust answers often comes when we least expect them because we've surrendered. How many of you have read Hamlet at some point in your life, whether it was high school or college? I'm sure there's a bunch of you there. But when I was in high school, every year we had to read a Shakespeare play. And my senior year, that happened to be Hamlet. And not only did we have to read it, but we also had to memorize portions of it. And honestly, our daily studies did not quite enhance exactly my understanding of what that poetic and complicated play was really all about when I was only 17 years old. But years later, I began to see the deeper spiritual struggle within the story. Hamlet is the story of a Danish prince struggling to deal with the murder of his father by his own brother because the uncle wanted to become king. And Hamlet wrestles with the morality as he desires for revenge, and he knows that revenge is wrong, and yet he really wants to get even with his uncle. And the play opens with Hamlet having a strong belief in God. But his famous soliloquy in Act 3, to be or not to be, that is the question whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. Now, can you tell what I had to memorize? After witnessing the corruption around him and encountering the ghost of his father, Hamlet moves into a deeper place of doubt. His trust in God and divine justice begins to weaken. At that time in history, Christians, remember this is right around the turn of the century, the 1600s, Christians were taught that justice belonged entirely to God and God alone, not to mankind. And human beings were not meant to take revenge into their own hands. But Hamlet really can't reconcile what he has witnessed with what he has been taught. There's his doubt and his faith in conflict, and a battle begins to rage within him. He is angry, very angry, because he knows that his uncle murdered his father. And his love for Ophelia, the daughter of a close friend, begins to fall apart as her own mental stability declines. And of course, Hamlet blames himself for this because of the transformation and the changes within his beliefs, which is affecting his relationships. His search for truth eventually leads to tragedy and the accidental deaths of others around him. All of these choices leave Hamlet filled with doubt and confusion, guilt, and moral uncertainty. Now, over 400 years ago, the existing churches were very clear about faith and doubt. Faith was expected to be unwavering and growing all the time. Moral decisions were viewed as absolute and clear because God guided you to that. But like many of us today, Hamlet believed doubt was a natural part of faith. It is through questioning and reading and studying and seeking that we become clearer about what we truly believe. Even though Hamlet is a historical play, its themes are still incredibly relevant today. Hamlet experienced corruption, power struggles, moral uncertainty in his world. While no one in our world has killed a king lately, we still see struggles for power and corruption and moral challenges throughout politics and society. Many people today struggle with uncertainty as prices continue to rise, jobs become less stable, A1 becomes part of our life, technology rapidly changes our lives, and homelessness continues to grow. This issue, explored in Hamlet, doubt, faith, morality, and trust are still part of our human experience today. Doubt is natural human experience, especially during difficult times. We experience setbacks. Sometimes we become overwhelmed with responsibility. Maybe suddenly we find ourselves caring for another person and carrying emotional, physical, or financial burdens we never ever thought we were going to have to do. And many of us long for assurance and certainty in a world that no longer feels certain. You remember Peter in Matthew 14, he saw Jesus walking on water and he thought, I can do this. And so he stepped out of the boat and he began to walk, and all of a sudden the wind came up. And his faith and his belief began to fade and he began to sink. And Jesus reached out and grabbed him and brought him back into the boat. Fear pulled his tension away. And remember that first statement or definition about doubt included fear. If we want to overcome doubt and release fear, we must learn how to navigate life's challenges with our faith. One way is by grounding ourselves in the teachings of Ernest Holmes. Page after page in his writings teach us how to change our thinking and remain spiritually open at the top, where the great morsels of belief are. Meditation helps us become centered and receptive and doesn't have to be long. As I always tell people who have never meditated, just begin with 2 minutes. Make that your starting point. Surely you can sit quietly for 2 minutes. Affirmative prayer creates an open dialogue with the divine. I always find prayer calming because it brings me back to the center of Christ consciousness within. And if doubt still creeps in, ask one of your practitioners for spiritual mind treatment. Sometimes another person can bring clarity and compassion and a new perspective to a challenging situation that we're experiencing or facing in life. To move through doubt, we must develop trust. I love how Ernest Holmes defines trust. To have faith in God, it is to follow this faith through by having faith in the self. The real self is God, and as such is to be implicitly trusted. The spark which burns at the center of our soul is caught from the living and eternal flames of the Spirit. To expand our faith, we must trust ourselves, because within that faith, trust is the divine presence itself within us. Faith, however, is a lifelong journey. Certainly, there will be moments of doubt, but the gift within those moments is profound growth and learning that can shape our lives and fill us with greater wisdom, compassion, and good. Set your intentions for what you desire or for the change you seek to overcome. But do not tell God how that has to happen. Do not place limits on the divine possibilities. Set the intention, trust the guidance, and then get out of God's way and let it be. Last Thanksgiving, a close friend of mine passed from ALS. Now, if you don't know much about ALS, it's a devastating disease. The nerve cells that control voluntary muscle movement gradually degenerate and die. As the disease progresses, individuals may experience difficulty speaking, swallowing, walking, breathing, holding anything. Jennifer was my living example of faith over doubt in the last 2 years of existence. Remember that divine wisdom and perspective are far beyond our own understanding, and perhaps that is where faith truly begins. As a retired medical doctor, she had diagnosed herself a year or so before her own doctor finally confirmed it. The average person lives 2 to 5 years after diagnosis. Jennifer was my example of faith over doubt in her last 2 years of living. For about a year and a half, I made weekly short visits to see her. She was always upbeat, inquisitive about my life, and shared pictures of her new grandbabies, which she had so desired and wanted for so long, something that she truly looked forward to, and yet they lived in Texas and in France. In all my many visits, she never questioned why this was happening to her. She never doubted her faith. Just before I would leave, we would always pray together. A month before she died, she wrote the following short story, not by hand, but with her eye movements, for her Presbyterian Church's monthly gratitude devotional. I want to share it with you this morning. My name is, well, honestly, it's every man. I'm struggling with a slow march terminal disease, but in reality, aren't we all? Death is the side effect of living. Through this journey, I have become by God's grace, exceedingly grateful that my transitory nature is now in my windshield more prominently. I have time to say goodbyes. It has given me a perspective of my place in the world. I am becoming more and more disabled. Yet God has allowed me to see I have been perfectly physically able until age 68, or 66 rather. Many people are born far greater with disabilities and live their entire lives physically restricted, and no one is bombing my city. I'm not starving. I have an amazing family and community who have enveloped me with love, personifying God's love. I'm grateful God continues to teach me and allows me to grow in this season. For instance, He is helping me realize how much pride I carried around in my head for years, even though everything I am and have is from Him and for Him. And I'm learning to trust Him constantly, not just saying it twice a day, not trying to tell the maker of the universe how to solve my problems, which is absolutely crazy, but when we talk. But mostly I'm grateful I know where my ultimate home is, and because of that, I have no fear of the future, only, only anticipation of perfection. Did you notice some of the key words she used? While she was not a religious scientist, her beliefs were certainly in line with our philosophy. Jennifer expresses no fear of what is happening to her. She never doubts that God is in her or as her and experiencing this disease with her. There is no question in her mind where she was going after her transition. Her faith saw her through any doubts she might have had. Jennifer was my living example and teacher of courage, faith, and divine surrender. She showed me how doubt only exists if I let it in and embrace it. She understood God is in all things, even sickness and a death. This is the truth in my life, and this is the truth in yours, and so it is. Amen.
Thank you.